Welcome, everybody, to the ElevateBiz KC podcast episode 4. I made the mistake last time doing both hands. So 4, thank you, everyone who is already on. Thank you, everyone who's going to listen in the future. And we're excited to start our November and today's Wednesday with you guys today. So I'm excited to be here. How are you, Dr. Katie?
I'm good. I'm glad you're in charge of the logistics of what day it is and what month it is because we were talking before we jumped on. Good, but tired for some reason today. Tired.
I think those weeks where there's a holiday make things very strange. So we were leaving some friend's house yesterday, and as we were driving home, I was like, I know it's not Thursday night, and I know tomorrow isn't Friday, but it feels like tomorrow's Friday. Maybe it's a holiday. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's weird too. I think, being an entrepreneur and like not having those like standard, like go to the office Monday through Friday and blah, blah. There's weeks where I'm just like, what day is it? Or, I'll wake up in the morning and tell my husband, like, thank goodness it's Friday. He's like, honey, it's Tuesday. And I'm like, oh,
that's not even close.
that's a problem. So yeah, it's just that, that kind of, I guess, lack of structure in the week, really throws me off. I love it though. I love not knowing what day it is.
It's an interesting thing I think of entrepreneurship just in general. And, I know when I was making the switch, and I hear this a lot from friends and clients, and I think you and I have even talked about this with your team, with Jenna and Emma, about, you want to become an entrepreneur because you want to create your own schedule and you want to get away from the mundane of the 8 to 4, the 9 to 5, all this kind of stuff. But the crazy thing is, like, especially in the beginning, you end up working more than you did before, potentially. And it's usually pretty crazy hours and whatnot. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if you kind of think about what you're signing up for before you actually get into it.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's some days I will be cranking and my husband will like tap on my office door and he'll be like, are we doing dinner? And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, dinner. Let's do this. I guess the day's over. So kind of that not knowing when it is and where it is and what time it is. I think it's good and bad. I think it's good that I get lost in time because I'm doing what I love and I'm passionate about, but then also probably not good because those are long days.
Oh yeah. Well, I love this topic, especially as we're coming to the end of the year. I always find that October and November are super busy for entrepreneurs, super busy for business-minded people because, hey, holidays and December's coming and we're trying to chill. We're kind of still working in December, but we're not really. So I know for me, we're trying to get a bunch of stuff done in October, now November, so we can close the end of the year out. So it's a perfect time to talk about this topic. Today, we're going to talk about work-life balance. We're going to talk about balancing work, balancing family, balancing leisure, balancing whatever else is in your kind of slice of the pie that comes into you saying, hey, I need to give more time to this thing. We're going to talk about that. And, I think I even said work-life balance, but it's less of the work-life balance and more of the work-life harmony. And we'll get into what that means to both of us here in a bit. But gosh, this is a topic that I hear constantly at networking groups and podcasts of people I listen to, YouTube videos. I mean, it's a constant thing of how do you figure out how to best spend your time. So I guess to kick it off before we get into the deep meat and potatoes of it, do you have any initial thoughts? Like, how do you do it? Like when you hear those terms, what first comes to mind for you and your team?
Yeah. I always laugh when people say work-life balance because it's like, what's the balance of it all? And a lot of times when I speak, it's like early in our career, we want it all, but what does it all mean, to have all family time or all work time and trying to spin all of those plates. And our good friend Haley Prophet spoke the other night and she was so fantastic, but it's that work-life harmony. Like, how do we find that harmony in our different seasons of life? And so you and I are in very different seasons. I quite frankly didn't even realize Halloween was last night until someone said something on Monday because I have a 19 and 21-year-old. So, my season of life is very different than someone trying to raise kids and do all of those kind of things. And so, um, you know, the spinning plates are different. My spinning plates are not more or less important. They're just different plates that I'm trying to keep spinning all the time.
Sure, absolutely. And I, maybe it's the team Haley's over here, but I had my friend Haley Walsh talk about this about, she said some variation to, work-life balance is BS. And she likes to cuss, so she said more words than that. But she's like, the harmony of it, the ebb and the flow, and kind of just also knowing what season you're in. So for us, pre-kids, very different what it meant to balance or harmonize between the work life. Like, frankly, for Rachel and I, we didn't even try to. We just did. We worked and we, had all the fun, and we'd do things late, and we'd go to evening events and whatever it was. And now, like, we don't do anything after 7 o'clock because that's bedtime. And so there's a very clear cutoff for what that looks like. But we also, sometimes it's a grind to get certain things done. So it's an interesting, I guess, of trying to bring all those things in and kind of focus on what's important. And sometimes things just aren't important.
Yeah. Well, and I think, that balance is so important. What is that balance? What does it look like? What's your priorities, whether it be, for your family, for your business? I've talked to so many people lately, where it's like, find those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited about it. So, what we're doing soon with ElevateBiz, our 20-week cohort, we're going to talk about some of these things. We're going to talk about the hard skills and the soft skills of trying to figure out business and how to be a success. But there's a lot of systemization of your time in that as well, where it's not necessarily so cookie cutter, but how do we have a real conversation in 2023 and soon to be 2024 of how we spend our time. Last week we talked about 2 weeks ago we talked about productivity. So we'll bring a lot of those conversations into that in the forefront, and I think that's really needed nowadays.
Yeah, it is. And finding what works for you, and what works for your business is so important. And I didn't know early starting my business. Like, I would have coffees and lunches and happy hours, and I would be zooming all over the city. And, I live north of the river. And so, it's a trek for me to, get to a lot of places. But I mean, I was putting 100 miles on the car during the day and here and there and all over. And it's like, first of all, not effective. And second of all, it's just too much stress to be jumping all over. So I really had to even lock down my Calendly to be very clear, like where I'm going to be on what days, how I'm going to meet with people, what I'm going to do. So I'm not, starting in Lenexa and then heading to Lee Summit and then back to downtown. And I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. I keep forgetting that you live in Northland. I don't know why. I just forget that fact that, you worked there before, you live up there. That's your existence. Yep.
Yeah. You forget it because I'm never there. I'm always someplace else. Like today I'm in Lenexa, one of our favorite places.
You could definitely live in Lenexa and it not be a weird thing with how often you guys are here.
Facts. Those might be conversations that happen in my house a lot lately.
Well, being close to the Catalyst team, being close to you, being close to Emma, being close to Jenna, and just kind of being a fly on the wall and hearing how you guys talk about it, it is very different as far as how you even lead your business as the CEO. And some of these things that you put in place for you, but also your team, like sometimes we'll be in a meeting and you're like, well, after this, I'm going to the golf course and we're going to do a round. I'm leaving early this week. I'm going to go see my daughter. And Jenna, is doing shows and everything. She's like, hey, after this meeting, I'm done with work for the day. So I'm going to go hit the gym early and then go and answer emails afterwards. And Emma's like, hey, I got a show this week. I'm practicing this or whatever it is. It's really, really cool. So can you kind of just talk about that from a practical standpoint and how you lead your organization and kind of implement that?
Yeah. Emma said knowing your core values from the beginning is the most important thing to me. And that's the most important thing to Catalyst. Like, who are we to our core? What are our expectations? And, when we were opening Catalyst and both of the ladies were like, I mean, they both have passions outside of Catalyst and our work that we do. And so I knew going into this, like, Emma is a literal rock star. Like, if nobody already has on their calendar to join us at Knuckleheads for her album release, what are you even doing? Like,
Right.
be there with us. She's a rock star. And so, like, at the beginning, she was going back and forth to Nashville to record her album. And then we know Jenna, she loves the gym and she's been preparing for a show. She just competed last weekend. She's competing again in 2 weeks. And so when you look at our calendar, it is kind of comical because we get a lot done for Catalyst. But like in the middle of the week last week, Jenna had to go get her hair done. And you'll see things on Emma in the next week as she's preparing for her show. Like, she has hair appointments. And um, I'm very clear with clients. Like, my daughter plays golf. Her tournaments during tournament season are Mondays and Tuesdays. So I limit client engagements on Monday and Tuesday. I can work from anywhere in the world. I just don't want to work from the golf course. And so we're just very clear on our values, who we are as a business, who we are individually. And I told my ladies, like, I'm less concerned with the number of hours you put into the business and more concerned with, are you getting your job done? And so
Mm.
I know a lot of times what Jenna's doing because she's usually with me. She's my facilitator with me. She's out doing business development. Emma's are more like behind the scenes person. And so there'll be times I don't see her for a couple days and I'm like, what is she doing? And then she'll pop up in a meeting and she'll be like, go to katieervin.com/research and look at this new website, page that I created. And that's so important. And then the other thing, Emma's right. We give each other grace, and we trust each other's talents. Like, we're there for each other. We're there for the organization. And it doesn't mean that when times are tough, when we don't have client engagements coming up, I do stress about that. Like, are we doing enough? But then I also have to have belief that it's going to give us what we're supposed to have.
Absolutely. That's so good. I love that. It's a real case study of something that's working in this regard. Because gosh, a lot of times when I'm talking to clients, but if I'm even talking about myself, like, I came into this whole entrepreneurial thing getting trained by a lot older businessmen, very rigid on how things go. And I did that for years. We have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. And it got to a point where I actually had employees that were like, but why? I love Gen Z. I love Gen Z. Most of our teams,
Yes.
Gen Z. And I love them because they're so like, they haven't been subjected to the business world yet to the extent that we have. They're not probably jaded by it. And they also don't know all the spoken and unspoken rules. So the amount of questions and the unique good questions actually is pretty cool. And the most basic one is like, why do we do that? Well, we just do. But
Yeah.
why? What's the purpose of it? And so dealing with that for years and years and years, and then asking them questions to know where that came from, kind of started to break that away from me. I'm like, oh, we don't have to do this. That was an
Yeah.
old way of doing the thing, of working these specific things and all the kind of stuff where it's like, I don't know for every single business and every single business model if that really matters anymore. So I think that's interesting to know that as entrepreneurs, we love to break rules. Let's create our own
Yeah.
and see what works for us. And this is one thing that does work: less rigidity and more being fluid, while also tracking the work that's getting done. Because like you said, it's not just like work whenever, do whatever, work 40 hours one week, 20 hours the next week. It's like the hours that you get in, get your 40 or dang near close to it. But like, I want to see results. I want to see these results through. I want to see you push the needle forward.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you talk about because it takes a lot of humility as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, it's your baby. And so to have, people come in and say, why, what, how. And so I'm interested because, your routine has to be open certain hours. People need to be there. And like,
Yeah.
we need our frozen yogurt and our amazing, cookie dough toppings. And so, how have you learned through the years to really balance that? Because it's easy for me to be on a cruise, but for you, you got to keep the doors open.
Sure. So, I'll admit, every day that it took me way too long to understand this, and it took me way too long to make it practical. Not in the intellectual understanding of it, because I got it. I think that one of my superpowers is empathy. But what was happening with me was the rigidity rules of how I was taught how to do business and my core values were butting up to each other. And how you're supposed to go up and do business was winning. For the first, I'm at 11 and a half years now. For the first 6 years, it was like, I want to show up and do it this way, but like, this is how it has to be done because this is how I was taught. So, I'm a knucklehead. It took me way too long to be like, hey, there is a different way. Hey, you love to break rules. Hey, we're entrepreneurs. That's what we do. Let's see if there's a better way. And so what we stumbled into is that rigidity still comes through. I have older managers and a very young team. And what we started doing is in the immediate, nothing is a solid no. We want to ask questions. So when someone says something, it isn't a firm answer of no, unless it is part of an SOP that we've worked through in this exercise, or it's against our core values that we work through with our team. It needs to be a conversation at that point. So, where does that come from? Why do you think that is something that we should do? And the feedback that we get is amazing. So I've said this before on past podcasts, and I'll say it every single day. Some of the best things we do at Yogurtini was not top down, passed down by me. It was asking our 14-year-old new hire to elaborate on something that they're seeing or something that they said. And then they open our eyes to something that we're like, we literally didn't even think about it that way, because they're a fresh set of eyes. They're looking at the world differently than we do because we understand how it's supposed to be done. And so one of our core values is just curiosity, having a culture of curiosity. Oh, why is this done? Why is that? How do we do that? Okay, you said this in the meeting, but what were you alluding to on that? Okay, hey, what are we trying to get done at this point? Because it feels like we're going down a route that it's feeling a little hairy. Like, why? And what that has done for us is it has actually increased buy-in because our people know the why behind what we're doing. But we also get to flip things on its head, and like our organization feels more human because of that, because we're not doing things based off how it's supposed to look or feel or sound anymore. We're doing it based off of like real humans showing up and being human. And a lot of those are really young humans. And our core team, our ideal clients, most of them are parents. And so that is actually adding in to the buy-in with our customers, because they're kind of trying to figure out how to understand and speak that talk as well. So it's almost like speaking the language that they're also trying to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love it. And so does Lindsay. Lindsay says in the immediate, the answer isn't no. It's so crucial to ask why. I love this. And I think it's so important too, as we are trying to find balance in our organizations, our companies, our businesses, knowing that we don't have to be everything. We don't have to know everything. I tell people all the time, I learn from Emma and Jenna almost daily. Like, they were teaching me something all the time. And if I didn't have them on my team, there's so many things that I wouldn't know how to do or couldn't do. And I mean, even I was playing a golf tournament last Friday and someone was asking a question. I'm like, hold on, let me call my little personal Google. And so, I called my 19-year-old, and the things, if we're open to learn them, can make our lives so much easier, but we have to be humble enough not to have to be the smartest people in the room.
Absolutely. And like, you have a whole program that's called Leaders. And one of my passions is building up leaders. How amazing is it to be able to help create other leaders by first modeling it? Like, that is one of the best things, to be able to teach someone how to do something. Like, they're watching you. Like, I have a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old, and I keep getting told over and over by Instagram reels my wife sends me, baby books and all that kind of stuff, is like, they're going to hear you, but what you do is going to be so much more impactful because they're watching. And so that is the same thing in leadership as well. You have to model this thing in the very beginning. If you're wanting your team to care about your ideal client, your customer, and go above and beyond, you have to do that. If you're going to say you're caring and serving the community, you're caring and serving your team, like, you have to showcase that first, and that has to be aligned with your core values.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I spoke a couple weeks ago to the Blue Springs Chamber, and I was talking about, self-care and taking care of ourselves. And, you know, it took me way too long in the corporate world to realize that I'm not going to get a medal or a trophy for working 60 to 90 hours a week. Like nobody's going to, yeah, they're going to give me a paycheck, but they're going to just keep grinding and grinding and grinding me. And so I'm sacrificing all of this stuff for somebody else. And even in your own business, that you have to, I mean, at this point, it's almost becoming cliche, but it's so critically important is you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. Like we have to take care of ourselves. We have to pause. We have to breathe. And we're not doing that enough. So I had a woman after I finished speaking in Blue Springs, like I come off the stage and she is like hands out coming towards me, um, giant hug. And she said, "You don't know how much I needed to hear that because my 6-year-old literally said to me this morning, Mom, you don't play with me anymore." And
Oh,
I just, you know, you think about our children or our spouses or our friends, maybe they're not saying that, but they're probably thinking like, why don't you have time for me anymore? You know, what's your priorities? What's the most important? And if we're not prioritizing the right things, when we finish that 70, 80, 90-hour work week and we look up, we're going to be alone. And
yeah.
even if we're still in our marriage, we're still going to be alone because we're going to drift apart. And so we got to feed into the things that are immediate.
Yeah, yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think, one of the things that we've seen over the last handful of years that we all experienced was a global pandemic in that way, radically transformed this exact conversation without people even knowing that they were literally killing themselves
Right.
inside someone else's business or even inside their own business. We got forced to be around family more. We got forced to kind of just slow down a little bit. And I think it brought a lot of insights in play for us. And so, like, how do you look at those things and have them be a priority? What also came with a lot of quiet time during the
Yeah.
pandemic was really starting to see what's going on in your internal world. And a lot of people, I wouldn't say developed mental health issues, but got a chance to actually experience them, something that they've been grinding and shoved down for so long. So when we're talking about this topic of work-life harmony, it's an ebb and a flow, it's seasonality and what your focus is going to be, but we also have to build in that time for ourselves. You even said it,
Mm.
taking the time to slow down and breathe. So what
Yeah.
does that look like for you, for your team, for the people who are in your Leaders Institute when it comes to building in and focusing on mental health as well?
Yeah, yeah. The first thing is, we've talked a lot lately with people of putting up boundaries, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you are, um, working for someone else, what are your boundaries? And I had someone tell me, I just keep repeating this because it's so shocking. Like they had a scheduled vacation and the leader of their organization, I'm sorry, leader, their boss, the boss of the organization, this person is not a leader, called and texted them 27 times when they are on vacation with their family. And you got to put up boundaries and you got to teach people how to treat you, and so I think that's really important to do that, and to schedule time. I will block time off of my calendar for family time for things like that, so people can't take that time. Early in my career, what I did was we had a babysitter on retainer. It was Tuesday nights, so she was less likely to get a better offer.
Yeah.
And on Tuesday nights, my husband and I would, even if it was go to Target and Chili's, like just ways that we could be together. And then as the kids got older, we would start walking in the morning at 5 a.m. together. And, just that time where you can be with your partner, be with the, person that grounds you and that, kind of keeps you straight. Um, One of my best friends. I tease, she's co-chair of my advisory committee, and we schedule regular dinners. Not enough, we need more, but we're having dinner on Monday to just kind of check in with each other and just to have this time. And so I think that's so important for us to do.
Yeah. Well, I think you nailed it when it comes to that. It's so important to, yeah, be able to focus on yourself in those times and know that it's sometimes a sprint. We can say what we want about, you know, um, work-life balance and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it kind of yields itself to like, oh, we got to kind of slow down a little bit and we got to whatever. But sometimes that isn't the case. Like we're all trying to do great things. So I think in one vein, we can focus on mental health and all those kinds of things by knowing when to slow down and how we're going to do that by having some decompressed time or meditation time, yoga time, working out time, or just like nap. Hey, I haven't slept enough. I'm just going to go take a nap. But I think the other portion is a lot of us are grinding. So whether it's 40 hours a week or it's less or it's more, it's incredibly important to focus on that. And like Emma said, with her and her fiance, those boundaries and great communication, I always call those things guardrails. So you don't end up way over here. Just communicate with your partner, with your boss, with your coworkers, with a friend, what season you're in. Like for me, I had a really big workshop that I had to do Monday night for AltCap. We were doing a partnership for their upcoming pitch competition. Well, I needed a lot of hours to put it in. So I talked to my wife and I ended up working. Sunday is family day, big time day for us for family day. We ended up not going to church and I worked the entire day on this. And it was only okay because I communicated to her to Emma's point in that. So the whole thing is definitely weird, but I think it's so beneficial when you're communicating properly and having these conversations on the front side instead of just not having the conversations and just getting lost in the sauce of what it means to be balanced.
Yeah. And I think it's important too. We talk a lot in leaders and, whether it be corporate leaders or Leaders Institute, like, surround yourself by people that support you, lift you up. And we tell people all the time, stop the drain. Like, what are the people, what are the things, what are the scenarios where you're just being drained and pulled down, and eliminate those as much as you can, because when we're trying to prioritize, like we talked about before, when we're trying to balance things, are we doing things that aren't good for our business, aren't good for our personal life, aren't good for our relationships? And if they are, stop them. I mean, another thing early in my marriage was I lived in this fantastic neighborhood, like one of those like over the top obnoxious neighborhoods where there were really creative parents doing really cool things that I didn't have the time or energy or the creativity to do. But I found myself, I would hang out with the wives. And there was one time I was sitting on a Friday night. It had been a like 80-hour week. And I was out to dinner with all of these wives on a Friday night, and they were just complaining about their kids and complaining about their spouses and complaining about, everything they could possibly complain about. And I texted my husband and I said, why am I doing this? Like, I like you. Like, I can't, I could make up things to complain about, but I like you. And so why am I spending 4 hours on a Friday night with these very unpleasant people? Why am I not with you and with our friends that like each other? And so we kind of did a family reset and stopped hanging out with a lot of those people because we assumed we had to because everyone lived in the same neighborhood. You don't have to hang out with people that don't bring you joy and that you don't enjoy being around. So stop it. Even if your kids are on the same sports team, if they are jerks, don't hang out with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think of when I think of this conversation, I don't know if it was an exercise in high school or college or what, but we're like in the front of a new planner where they have all these like motivational type things and whatnot. But I always think of a pie chart, and like everything has its own sliver and everything is also equal. So like 25 to leisure, 25 to family, 25 to work, 25 to faith, or whatever else you want to throw in there with the increment that it's going to be. And like, I just don't know if it's ever going to be that way. I think that's why we're really pushing back on this concept of balance. Cause like, to me, that's the version and the definition of balance that I think is literally impossible. And it's so fleeting to be able to chase that. Cause I'm going to be honest, like my wife and I, we love exactly what we're doing. She's stay-at-home mom. She's killing it with the mom game. I'm a one-income household. I work a lot, but I'm also happiest when I'm working, and she's happiest when she's with the kids and with me. And so I did a talk a few weeks ago, and they were talking about how do you balance your life, and how do you have time for leisure and fun? And I was like, I don't. I was like, the two things that I care about are my family time and my work time, because it fuels everything we get to do with that. And I've kind of combined my fun into my family time, because I just don't have time to do all the networking and all the fun and all that kind of stuff. Like, my responsibilities have changed. And I think that's also okay, whether it's intentionally cutting someone off to buy back some of your time, or realizing like, hey, right now in the season, fun isn't my top priority. Please believe 18 to 22, fun was my top priority. But like, making money wasn't at that point. But now the stakes have risen, so things just change.
Yeah, and it's truly that season of life. I mean, at 47 with a 19 and 21-year-old, our fun life, can come back. We can do bottomless mimosa brunches on Sundays because we don't have to worry about, sleep and all that stuff. We get it. And so knowing that everything is a season of time and cherish it. And, to Emma's point at the very beginning, like, we know our values, we know our family values. And even when we were raising the kids, like, there were times when I'd have to say to the kids, like, we don't do it like that because we're Ervins. Like, here's what we are. We are integrity, and we are family, and we are connection, and we are doing good. And that's who the Ervins are.
Love it.
And so, yeah, we don't behave that way because we're the Ervins and we expect different. And so knowing your values allows you to keep that balance, and it allows you to have that communication, those relationships inside and outside of work, to be able to say, this is the season we're in, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to have to grind differently because we're trying to build a business, keep a business open, pay our bills, do all the things. And I think a really important thing we don't talk about enough, because especially on social media, we want everything to be shiny and pretty, is we all have stuff. We're all going through stuff. Even the most perfect of days, there is something lingering in the back of what we're doing. And so giving ourselves grace and giving other people grace is so important with that, harmony that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you nailed it when it comes to that. That is 100% sure. Like, being rooted in, I think we said this last week too, like, why you're doing it, the purpose, the vision behind it, the core values that are attached to it. I think that aligns a lot of it. If you're saying that one of the things that really makes sense to you is community, but you don't find yourself in that chunk of pie spending time in community, maybe you're a little bit out of harmony with what you're wanting to do. And maybe that's leading a little bit to your sadness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of tells you a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the cool part about what we're currently doing, but what we are going to do with ElevateBiz is, help people from the beginning of our program, really lay out the values personally and professionally. What are your values as a business owner, as a, small business leader? What are those values? What are you doing? And then how do you stay true to those? Because we've been talking a lot. We're getting ready to present at Global Entrepreneur Week. And, I think the reason why both of us are successful is we know, here's our core business, here's what we're doing, and we're going to stay true to the business. We're not trying to be everything to everyone all the time. And I think so often when we are trying to run a business, we try to say yes to everything because we're trying to pay our bills. And so when we say yes to everything, we water down who we are. And I'll be working with clients and they're like, I don't know why I keep getting calls to do strategic planning. And it's like, I don't know. Let's get on your Facebook page. Let's get on your LinkedIn. And it's like, because that's what you're putting into the universe. So don't put into the universe stuff you don't want to do. Like, and it's easy for me to say, like, don't take business you don't want to do. Do what you need to do for your family, but don't shove it out there. If you are doing things because you need to pay the bills, but that's not what you want to do, then don't be pushing that, because what you're pushing out into the universe is what people are going to see your business as.
Yeah. You nailed it. And, that is the reason, we say this each week, and it's like, we have such a deep passion for this. We talk about these things endlessly of, our love for entrepreneurship, what we're trying to accomplish, but also what we're trying to teach in that way. But also, we don't have all the answers. There's a lot of great things that we just talked about, we learned from our teams, that we're looking forward to learning from the individuals that would be in our cohorts. And so when we do this, it is truly going to be an ecosystem where we're learning from each other, because I know, having conversations, I'm learning so much from the community and how they do certain things and how they win in this regard. Like, the amount of times that I'm going to bend an ear of someone who has kids that are older than mine, it's alarming, because I want to learn and soak those things up. So if you're someone out there who you are in business and you're just trying to get incrementally better, whatever that means for you, whether it's more sales, higher retention for your team, you are trying to do a new location, you're going to buy a new truck, there's just some things that are kind of confusing. Hey, you're having success, but you're working 80, 90 hours. Like, we want to help with that. Not only do we want to educate you in what we think is going to be better, we have a curriculum that isn't just anecdotal. It's also built off data, statistics, and other people who have done this as well. So it's not just the Katie and Isaac show. I promise you, it's definitely not going to be that. But we're also going to learn from the other people in the cohort. Yes, they're there to learn, but they're at this level because they're doing stuff really, really well. So what are they doing that we can harness, and we can shorten their learning curve by having them speak on something? And I am very, very excited for that.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And the beauty is, when we all share together, what works for me won't exactly work for you, but it can help. It can create those kind of areas where you can explore and lean into, and what works for you may not work for me. And so the more we bring people together, give kind of the guardrails of potential success, and then have people build it in what works for them is really powerful. So I'm excited to continue these conversations, and I'm excited to share kind of what has worked for us, but then to learn and hear from everybody else as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. I love it as well. If you guys want more of us, follow us on social, wherever you're seeing this. If you don't follow me or Dr. Katie, please follow us. If you have questions, if you have more to add to this, we're about to end the live, but this is going to stay up. So comment. Let's have more conversations in there and talk about these things. What are you doing that's working? What are the things that you need to work on, that you're trying to get better at that in the work sphere, in the leisure sphere, in the life sphere of the personal side of it as well. So let us know as far as that goes. Also, in 2 weeks, if you're in the Kansas City Metro, we are speaking at Global Entrepreneurship Week. And so Dr. Katie just posted a little bit about that. We would love to have you there. It's going to be 90 minutes of amazingness. We have some programming, but again, we're grouping up. We're kind of, what do they say, circling the horses, I think the term is. And we're going to have some conversations about how to create a more sustainable and better business. And then, yes, ElevateBiz is February 7th, 2024 when it launches. If you have information or want information about any of these things, go to elevatebizkc.com or DM Dr. Katie or myself, and we'd love to have some conversations with you.
Yep, sounds great. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone joining us. And I hope everyone has a fantastic week, and take a minute and do some self-care, whether it's take a nap or take a walk or just pause for a second and breathe.
Oh, team naps over here. Please take a nap. Hey, good to see you, Dr. Katie. Good to see everyone out there. We'll see y'all next week on the ElevateBiz podcast for episode 5. See y'all then.
Bye, everyone.